Welcome to Take 10 minutes that can change your life with a key idea or a module or a practice that we're working with from our Level 10 Living Curriculum, material that is probably 35, 40 years worth of study of transformation and where it's worked, where it doesn't work, and how it actually happens for people that are interested in, and here's the things we're looking for, people that want to really convert chaos into clarity, and people that want to shift their state from fear and intimidation into unstoppable courage, and for people that want to master the art of powerful personal connecting with that flow, that supernatural favor that actually comes upon people that are engaged in God's assignment. We're looking at this whole material, really excites me. I'm with my son, Carl, who's been working with developing the material and coaching. And you made an important point. In our last module, we were talking about total unconditional acceptance. And I said it was Erickson, but actually it was
Carl Rogers.
Carl Rogers was the one that really introduced that, suspending judgment so that a person can have the courage to explore their own, what's really going on inside them, instead of like pulling back and defending themselves. Mm-hmm. And so this idea about this TUA, I think is important because we're going to be dealing with a lot of people that are so much different than us, that you don't have to change your belief system about what's right or wrong, but you have to certainly manage the way in which you're interacting with people so that rather than being toxic and judgmental, you're actually redemptive. And that's how Jesus does it. I mean, Jesus, in my experience with him, I was always blown away by how he knew more about me than I knew, and also invited me into something bigger and better than what I was. So there's this, it's a kind of a mysterious thing, but that TUA, that love, or we'll say it's the love of God, that is unconditional love of God, that is in Christ. It's a love that comes to us. It's a love that is to dwell in us. And then most importantly, I think it's a love that comes through us. And if it's not coming through us, I think it's because it's that middle phase. Do you know how to walk in the love of God towards yourself? Mm. Do you know how to be forgiving to yourself? Do you know how to handle your undeveloped, life, your mistakes in a way that's redemptive? And you could tell whether or not you're walking in TUA towards yourself by, I would say, by the emotion and the feeling of condemnation, inadequacy, fear, because that indicates that somehow you're having a dialogue in yourself that is condemning rather than liberating. Any thoughts on this before we go into how you can release this to other people in rapport?
Yeah, one thing I would like to bring up, I think in the literature, it is sometimes referred to as unconditional positive regard. And that in turn talks about or references the positive intention behind activities. So in some of our material, we talk about how pretty much any and all activities are motivated by a positive intention. Whether or not it actually executes that way or is ultimately to the benefit of the individual doing that activity, it's always found in the results.
What does that mean? So people are doing something for themselves
with a positive intention behind it. Yes. So, for instance, somebody could make the argument that Mother Teresa wasn't just this saintly woman who was going out of her way for the suffering of others, but she was actually doing it because she got a dopaminergic spike or some type of endorphin rush or some type of feel-good chemical that was inside of her from doing these types of activities. Sometimes it's by living a religious life, sometimes it's by living an ethical life, but it's almost always going to be rooted in a positive intention in their own mind or in their own way.
Yeah, and the only exception I'd say to that is that there are times when God calls you to take up a cross, and it's not because it's going to produce the most positive pleasure. It's because the path of obedience is greater than the path of pleasure.
Yeah, I didn't mean just pleasure. I mean, it's a positive thing that they're associating with that. That's why I specified the ethics and the religious lifestyle to pull some terminology from Kierkegaard in that regard.
Okay.
So that's all that means, is that when we are trying to practice total unconditional acceptance for ourselves, it does help to understand that positive aspect where we're trying to find where our activities are being motivated and for what reason to what end, and where that positivity is really sprouting forth.
And tying this into earlier material we covered.
Yes, sir.
That when you have a significance, understand your own design. Could be a design for significance, a need to be important, and part of your identity is being significant. Then it's really important that you're aware of how to sanctify that drive by contribution, which means be aware of opportunities you have to subordinate your significance need in order to make someone else be significant. And contribution is all about how to harness the selfishness and really invest in other people for their benefit and not for yours. And it's amazing how many times, like Frodo with the ring, how many times we're really working back to ourselves when we think we're trying to give it away and somehow it ends up back in our pockets. Listen, we're all addicted to our own self. But this is all the more important when we talk about rapport. I want to talk about, so the TUA, Total Unconditional Acceptance, from God to us is to some degree the miracle of what you experience when you become a Christian. From you to you, giving it to yourself is the next element. But it really, you know how you're operating it when you can give it away to other people. And this is really takes a lot of strength to do this. But let's talk about the human beings don't know your intention. They only know what they're seeing. I mean, it's really weird. It's unfortunate, but talk to me about rapport and how that really works in the whole dynamic of human beings with each other.
Absolutely. So one acronym that I picked up from you actually is that rapport stands for really all people prefer others reflecting themselves. And that can be tied back to ancient tribalism, where we actually are looking for familiarity because there's this danger associated with other. It could also potentially be mirror neurons, where it actually does provide this sense of comfort with other people. And mirror neurons are the receptors that we have that mimic other people when they're acting with us. So we'll occasionally mimic body language, or we'll look at somebody and if they're smiling, we'll smile back, or we'll get this peace about ourselves when we see like we're in a safe place, that kind of idea. And it's because our bodies are picking up on more than just what we're seeing. There's all these other senses that are commingling and creating this sense of self and this sense of experience.
And so the point is that because of this mirror receptor thing, where you're unconsciously, intuitively, you're matching or you're mirroring back the energy that you're getting, I realized that your facial expression itself can become a powerful message sender. See, I don't care if you're walking in the love of God and you love somebody and you're trying to minister to them. If you yourself look tormented, then it's difficult for them to get past the expression on your face.
Absolutely.
So what have we learned about just even like being present with other people?
Absolutely. If you guys in the back wouldn't mind pulling up the slide with soft eyes, it's the old bald guy. Love this guy. Love that look. So if you ever want to make people feel comfortable around you, try to look like this. Focus on the zygomatic muscles around the eyes and also the laugh lines around the mouth. You can tell that this person, this individual here is rather genuine or an incredible actor. But probably the genuine aspect. And it's weird, something that you've also mentioned a number of times in your events is how Hollywood, the glamour industry, actually will Botox away these laugh lines, which are also referred to as trust lines in some instances, in some circles, because these are the lines that children look to in adults to know if this individual is trustworthy or not.
Exactly. And literally, children will pick adults that have those zygomatic muscles there. Now, so when you're establishing connection with someone else and you're trying to be really earnest and sincere, what's the other picture we have? Do we have Dracula back there?
Yes. If you guys wouldn't mind bringing up the other. This is how you know that you are in the right place.
This is unfortunately, like when I'm preoccupied, I'm thinking about something, that tends to be the look that I get, and I'm lost in a thought and not realizing this is probably not going to build rapport with my wife or the audience, certainly. So, and even like the crease lines that are between the eyes, I got this really like Beethoven-like lines there.
The furrowed brow.
Yeah, I have to be aware of that because otherwise they're easily formed because I'm a brooding, thinking kind of person. But what we want you to catch is this: we have in the material, in the curriculum, We literally cover hours of materials or 4 DVDs that we practice with you. How to be present with other people, how to handle internal dialogue, how to build rapport, and then we do the exercises. And we record them there because for us, learning has to be information and experiential. If you don't experience it, it's just, it's data. But when you internalize it emotionally and you do it in an activation, you get it because it's a reference experience for the table of your life. All right, well, thank you so much. We'll be back again on the next Take 10, where we want to focus on the destiny mapping process, how you can literally map your destiny, where you've been, where you are, and where you're going.
Excellent.
You know, in 40 years, you learn a lot. I've invested in all kinds of remarkable training and transformational experiences. And then I got to the point where I was realizing I need to put it together as a legacy to hand off to the next generation. The stages and phases to go up the mountain of God, to literally ascend the mountain of me, who you are, understanding your actual identity, being able to read the journey of where you've been so that you can forecast exactly where you're going. And all of that powerful transformational material we put into 4 different modules with DVDs, with workbooks, and you get to see an actual group of people working out the call of God in this various series. For instance, on Becoming Unstoppable, we found that the 2 things were getting in the way of a lot of believers was giving themselves permission to go for the actual dream that was in their heart, not putting it off because God's still trying to teach them something, putting into effect the laser-like focus to be able to see exactly what you've got to do and go for it. But then we found that so many times people became discouraged or quit. Becoming Unstoppable was the final discovery. And all this material was really built off of interacting with my students, seeing what worked, what transforms and changes a life. I found that prophetic activation happens in an environment of intense teaching and training with honest, transparent transactions. So you have this live element that produces a transformational world. I want you to be able to get all 4 of those modules, all the hours of training, all of the concentrated effort of those 30 years I put into one magnificent weekend event and brought in a film crew and recorded it. And now I want to give it to you. What was like $2,500 or something for people to attend is yours at a fraction of that cost. I encourage you to do this. Do this because you need to hear something. Let's put it this way. You need to listen to something that isn't familiar. Because if what you already know would get you where you want to go, it would have already gotten you there. You need to be exposed to some stuff you don't already know, a different way of seeing and doing things. And that's going to be the distinction that gets you to the top. It's my belief that you can become unstoppable with just a little bit more insight and a little bit more freedom. Get a hold of this level 10 training.